name is Jane Yanagawa. I'm a thoracic surgeon. I'm the interim chief right now for the Division of Thoracic Surgery in the Department of Surgery at UCLA, and I am a member of the JCCC because I specialize in thoracic oncology, and I have a lab that also focuses on lung cancer research.
So, to just, um, will you describe for us what thoracic oncology entails?
Mhm. So, thoracic surgery just means that I'm a surgeon who focuses on diseases that affect the chest. Thoracic essentially means the chest. Technically, the field is called cardiothoracic surgery, except the way we are split up here is that some surgeons just focus on cardiac, which is on the heart and the aorta, and then some of us focus on the thoracic portion of the chest, and that includes the lungs, the esophagus, the airway, the mediastinum, the chest wall, the esophagus, a lot of things that go between your neck and your belly, essentially. Um, to be a thoracic surgeon means that you've done general surgery training usually, and then after that have decided to specialize just in this area. Thoracic oncology essentially it means that we take care of cancers that have to do with anything in that area. The most common thing we see is probably lung cancer, but we also treat other cancers, sarcomas, which are soft tissue or bony tissue type cancers, or esophageal cancers, things that happen in the mediastinum. That includes things that affect an organ called the thymus. So that might include a tumor called thymomas. There's so many different things, that can happen in the chest, so it covers a lot.
With the outbreak of COVID-19, there's probably a lot more need for thoracic surgery also. I'm assuming.
Yeah, actually, it's really interesting. In some places, thoracic surgeons were involved for things to support patients while they were recovering from COVID. But I would say for most thoracic surgeons, the main stressor of the pandemic was trying to figure out how to still be able to safely provide operations for patients who had cancers in the chest, despite all of COVID, how to protect them from COVID by changing rules about how many visitors could come to the hospital, and or if they had COVID, if we could time the surgery to be the safest possible so that they'd have enough time to recover from the COVID, even though we didn't have that much information about, how much time really was required to recover, back then. We really prioritized patients who had advanced cancers to make sure we were able to provide, the best cancer care for them, even despite all these crazy things that were happening when COVID first started.
That's really interesting that you that overall um doctors had to go and even become even more empathetic towards patients during it in order to organize and to yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
especially because everyone was, scared. Even people working in the hospital were scared right when everything started, and we weren't
Mhm.
sure what it was going to be like, or what unexpected things could happen, how to protect, even not just the patient, but everyone in the OR. It was a kind of intense time. And like you were mentioning, it actually probably required even more empathy, like you were saying, than normal because patients during one period of time couldn't have any visitors. And you can imagine having like a huge operation and then you can't see any of your friends or family while you're recovering in the hospital. I think was really hard for a lot of patients.
Um, what you're as you're explaining this and thoracic surgery, you're really interested in it, and it's probably because you've also been working in it for a while. So
Mhm.
what caused you, or what helped you in finding your interest in this field that you work in?
So I had no idea that not only did I want to do thoracic surgery, I had no idea I even wanted to be a surgeon when I went to medical school. My dad is a doctor, but he's a medical doctor. So I grew up, understanding what a doctor was like and what it was like to be really busy and take care of patients and do research and things like that. So I thought I knew, what it would be like when I went to medical school. But, my first rotation was on surgery. And back then, the advice you were getting as a medical student was like, oh, the first rotation, you'll have no idea what you're doing. You don't know where anything is, and you don't know how to, talk to patients and things like that. So make sure your first rotation is in something that you absolutely don't want to go into. So I was like, well, then I will definitely do surgery first. And so then I did surgery and realized that I loved it. It was nothing like what the stereotypes were of what surgery was like or what a surgeon had to be like. I went to medical school imagining that surgeons were really aggressive and insensitive and just wanted to do things. And then I realized actually it wasn't like that at all. It was, especially general surgery, I thought was so complex and felt like you had to understand not only so much anatomy and like the mechanics of things, but also like so much physiology. And it was felt like an expanded version of medicine, and on top of that, what I loved about it was like the teamwork. People always act like a surgeon thinks like, I'm in charge. I'm the one who did everything. It's not like that at all. You rely on so many people in the operating room. There's anesthesia. Their role is so critical during the operation. You realize, and then also the in the OR, there's people who are scrubbed in to help you, give you the instruments, and make sure that everything is possible for you to do the best job possible. There's also people walking around in the room getting all the supplies that you realize you need during the case. There's literally so many people involved to take care of this one person. That teamwork and actually that feeling that you're all unified for this one really amazing purpose to help someone was an amazing part of it. And then the relationship with the patient I felt was so special because, if you are a medicine doctor, you may prescribe a medication or do something and say, okay, try this and let's talk about it and things like that. I mean, surgery is like that too, but then the fact that you have to do an entire operation on them and they have to sign a form saying, okay, you do whatever you need to do. I'll just be asleep, and I just trust you, made me realize, oh my gosh, you have to be the nicest person to be a surgeon, because they're putting the patient in such a scary situation. The patients are so scared and they really want to be able to trust the person. It made me realize that actually all the things that I really wanted for in a job as a doctor was actually the things that were involved with being a surgeon. So it was a surprise to me, but in the end, I loved surgery. And then I did a case that I was assigned to. I didn't even sign up for it, but it was a cardiac surgery. And that was the first time I saw the heart. It was the first time I saw the lungs, and everything was so dynamic and, so much physiology, because you're operating on like the organs that create your vital signs. And so I was like, oh, I'm meant to be here, and so I, without even knowing that I would be interested in thoracic oncology, sort of accidentally found that that was the perfect thing for me to do.
That's really awesome. You talked about teamwork, and I don't know about you. I'm Latina, and teamwork is a big part of like my culture. Like being a community is very important, and so like I I'm assuming based on your name and like your appearance, I'm assuming you're also a woman of color,
Hmm.
and so like do you have like that kind of like does medicine give you that sense of community also?
Um, there's so many ways to think about that because you can relate to people in so many ways, find ways to relate to people and patients on so many levels. I do think it's really important to have like a diverse team, because our patients are diverse, and they've shown that if you have a diverse team, the care is better to take care of a diverse population. So I think that is incredibly important. And in terms of how I've been influenced by that, I would say my parents are from Taiwan, and so they were immigrants, and I think the fact that they were immigrants growing up gave me a totally different perspective of what it's like to not speak English, as your primary language, what it's like to be considered a foreigner, by other people. It did give me like a special perspective that I think I carry into how I interact with not just the team members, but like students and residents and trainees, as well as the patients. I think my own family culture to like make it an even smaller culture. My parents worked so hard, and were so humble, and so incredibly supportive of me and my siblings, and we were such a close-knit family that gave me a lot of strength to get through parts of like anything that is hard to do. Helped me get through a lot of the challenges, and made it possible for me to be doing what I'm doing today.
That's really awesome. So kind of following up with that, who inspires or who's inspired or mentored you during your journey to medicine, even now? So,
I mean, so many people, like I mentioned, my family definitely inspires and makes it possible for me to, I mean, I tell people that, I get up every day to do stuff because of them, even if I'm not literally with them or seeing them, but I can tell that the values that they instilled in me, and my inspiration because of them, and how much I care about them too, gives me the strength to want to help people in general, that's a big deal. But when I went to medical school, I did have a mentor who was a cardiac surgeon, and was like, actually, it was a hospital where cardiac surgery was like historically very important. And, that gave me sort of a connection with the history of cardiothoracic surgery that I thought, gave me a special respect for it. And then, as a resident, when I went into, decided to go into, cardiothoracic surgery, I actually did 2 years of research with Dr. Dubinette at the JCCC, and that really inspired me to focus on lung cancer, not just as a clinically active surgeon, but also as a researcher. And so that was like an important phase of my training. And afterwards, when I went to my fellowship at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York, the chief at that time was a woman, Dr. Rush, who had beat all odds to become like a major leader in our field. And plus, she was like an amazing surgeon, an amazing teacher. She was an important mentor. And then when I got here, I mean, so many people, like outside of even my field, who aren't even surgeons, have really inspired and mentored me on how to, be the most effective I can be, how to, balance your own personal wellness, right? Which is, of course, always important. And then also how to accomplish the most possible for your patients, and promote your trainees and residents, and things like that, and students, of course. So I think along the way there have been so many people, and that's not even to mention, some of the patients and their family members that I've, sort of lived their experiences with them, and come to have like a lot of inspiration through them as well. I mean, it's amazing that you can go through a process for something that's so meaningful. I think it's inevitable that you end up having a lot of sources of mentorship and inspiration. I do want to say that there is something called an organization called Women in Thoracic Surgery. And through that, when I was a trainee, I met women who were thoracic surgeons who I was paired up with. And some of the women that I met there, for example, Jessica Dunnington, who is the chief of thoracic surgery now at the University of Chicago, she, for example, was very supportive of me the whole time, even though I wasn't directly working with her. And then I became the scholarship co-chair, and I was able to sort of provide the same experience for a lot of trainees who were interested. And it was not only just really rewarding, but it showed me how important those experiences are, because right now, if you look at all the board certified surgeons in cardiothoracic surgery, uh, only about 4% of them are women. And so there are a lot of places where women are not seeing other women doing thoracic surgery. And like you mentioned, to have like more diversity in the different fields is really important to inspire the next generation. So those were really important experiences that sort of shaped who I am today. And I would say I get a lot of inspiration still from that organization.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna do my like final question because you've covered most of them. So
Okay.
no, it's great. It's really great. Like it's all sorry. So my like last thing is like talking about what we both wish that we knew going in both in grade school and high school and maybe even college, what what we wish we knew before getting into STEM.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if you want to start off or I can. I'm good with whatever. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I say the same thing, which is that um, I I feel like when I was growing up, and getting my training and all that stuff, that people didn't really stress, you know, figuring out what you like. That the stress was always on like, things that were, doing things that having ambition or thinking ahead and being prepared and having a good CV, and you need to take certain classes, you have to get certain grades, you have to have certain publications. Well, first of all those things are important, but I felt like no one was explicitly saying you also have to like what you're doing. And sometimes I see medical students, really stressing about what is it that I'm supposed to be doing. But I always remind them, when you're having these experiences, if you focus a lot on what you're supposed to be doing, you may be so distracted by that that you won't realize what you like to do. And for me, like how I said, a lot of these things happened by accident. It wasn't like I sat around and I was like, oh, thoracic surgery makes a lot of sense for me, and checked off a bunch of boxes. It was having that experience and being sort of open-minded at the time, I guess, when I was there, and recognizing that I liked it, I think that that is so important, because no matter what you end up doing in STEM or not, you will always run into challenges, things that you can expect, things that you don't even expect to run into, and difficult times. And I would say the thing that always got me through all those obstacles was the fact that I loved what I was doing, And so I think, trying to find what you love to do, STEM or not, is probably one of the most important things.
Yeah, I agree. So for me, I'm pre-med, I'm a college student, and
Hmm.
for me, I've wanted to be a doctor since I was like in the second grade. And so it's been something that it's always been like that. I've like tried figuring out what I wanted to do for the longest time. And I know medical school you get to decide, but I've always been like a very over prepared person. Like I get very like focused on like what I want to do, and like I will figure out how to do it. And so like I personally want to go into obstetrics and gynecology. And so like it's like therefore like the path that I'm taking is like very specific to me. I'm doing gender studies. I'm going to do a minor in, I think, disability studies right now. That's my plan. But overall, like I'm doing like the stuff that like I like to do, which is something that I'm glad that I am allowing myself to do. Because if for me personally, when I was in high school, I was that person that I took everything that I needed to take. Like I took all the APs, I was a part of all the clubs, but also I moved a lot. So like it was hard because the one high school that I was the most stable in, I went and did all the programs, and then I moved for my junior and senior year. So then like it was hard because all of a sudden I was in a new place. I
Hmm.
had to adapt. I couldn't be a part of those same clubs, and like it caused me just a lot of stress,
Hmm.
which luckily allowed me to see that like I can be like not perfect. And I think that what is something that I wish I had known when I was like in grade school specifically, because I've known I wanted to be a doctor for so long. I wish that I'd be able to tell myself like, hey, you can calm down. Like you're okay. Like
Well, also, you don't realize till later, what positive things you got from those experiences, because some of those challenges might lead to like some of the disadvantages that you see, but
mhm,
some of the advantages are not obvious till later. So potentially the fact that you've had to move around and start over, gave you skills for how to start over in a new place. Because some people may not know how to, when they're faced with those disadvantages later on, will not know how to make the best of it, how to conquer those things. I mean, you may have already started developing skills that will make some of those things, when they happen again in the future, a lot easier for you than for other people. So, I mean, I think that I've learned that a lot too, where if you're going through something difficult and you feel like it wasn't fair, or now, you have this setback you'll never recover from or whatever, that it's not till later on that you realize that sometimes that helps you get ahead, because you have experience that other people didn't have.
I agree. And because like I think these like interviews are like focused for like our younger girls in STEM.
Mhm.
Like, do you have any advice for them? Like
Mm,
besides what we were both just talking about like embracing yourself and do what you like to do. Cause like for me, and for instance, like this year, like I didn't think I was gonna be able to do it, but like I joined like a news magazine. So like and
mhm.
now like I didn't think I'd be writing. Like I joined to do like the layout of the magazines and now like I'm writing like now for this summer I'm gonna come out with like almost like 6 pieces, which is like
Wow, oh my
insane.
gosh, that's incredible.
And like
Um,
it is something that I enjoy. Like obviously like it's a side thing, but like I've like let myself be like, you know what? I'm not gonna let myself who judges my own writing, like I'm gonna let myself go and do this and I'm having so much fun with it. And like I I do wish that like I had somebody when I was in high school who was like, hey, like you don't need to make your whole entire life about STEM, like that you can have interests that are not STEM field related and like
yeah.
still be into medicine.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I mean, especially medicine because there's so much like humanities around it too. So, I mean, I think that in general, like it is important to be open-minded and be open to opportunities, and also to not, like I tell everyone, a lot of the things that I've accomplished that I'm like the most proud of are things that I didn't necessarily plan to do. And so that if you stay open-minded, a lot of times things will take you on paths that are even better than something that you could have picked, And so I think staying open-minded is really important, staying open to opportunities like you were like, I'm going to just try this thing, and in the end, again, like what the skills that you got from it are potentially even greater than you can imagine or identify now. I think that that is really important. And I think that, um, that it is really, I don't want to say that's not important to be prepared because obviously you got to where you are by being the kind of person who prepares a lot, but not to be afraid of changes in the plan, and even when you just say medicine, there's so many versions of medicine, like for example, even within thoracic surgery, there are people who specialize in totally different things, and that can affect, what their practice is like, what their lifestyle is like, what kind of patients they see, you know. You can find niches everywhere that are not obvious. And so keeping your eyes open, keeping your mind open, keeping your heart open to what you love, I think those things guide you sometimes more than like the obvious plans that start from A and go to B, go to C, go to D. And it sounds like you're doing all those things kind of naturally.
Yeah, thank you. I try. So that Dr. Yanagawa, thank you so much for your time today. And this was a really great little segment that we had. And thank you so much. You've enlightened me so much.
Well, it's so wonderful to meet you and to learn about what your path has been. I can't wait to hear about your future too. So.